So the last few days have been really tough and challenging and mentally exhausting.
Yes.
Not ordinary times at all. And we've really struggled to keep our routines. We have felt anxious, angry, frustrated, and many of us have really suffered some really unimaginable losses. And we have to really make sure that all of us are taking care of ourselves, and each one of us is masking up, sanitizing, and maintaining social distancing. But we believe that literature has the power to transform lives. And we need to be really hopeful and positive that we will really sail through the second wave of Corona with the hard work of all the medical professionals that we have. And a big, big salute to all of them. So, Sir knows me very well because this is the second time Sir is gracing our platform. But everyone who's joined in today, I must say that I am Neeta Aneja and I'm the founder of Trends, which is the platform for art, cultural, social, and literary experiences. Do subscribe to our channel Trends Events if you want to see the recordings of all the other authors that have praised our platform. And you can even see Sir's first conversation that we had on our platform. So I'm so glad to announce that today in our 41st author interaction, we have none other than Major General Gagandeep Bakshi. He's the defense expert, strategic affairs specialist, military historian, and decorated combat veteran. He's an author of over 37 books, and he's written around 300 papers. Sir is also a PhD in military affairs and strategic affairs. In fact, he did his PhD after his retirement. So that is the spirit we are really bow to. And he's been honored with Rashtriya Samman Award for his contributions in the military, social, and literary. And he's, of course, a very, very sought after TV panelist who's always there on all the prime TV channels, regularly putting his views, very, very strong views, I must say, across. So welcome to our platform for the second time over.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sir, you are such a great motivational speaker, and that is par excellence. So how would you like to reflect on choosing and finding hope in current times, especially when we are in the middle of Corona wave, and which is more devastating than the earlier one?
You know, in the army, they used to tell us that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. You know, we had the first wave of the coronavirus last year. It was the worst black swan event to hit the world in the last 100 years, over 100 years. And 166 million people are infected, 3.5 million, 35 lakhs are dead. 2 trillion is the hit to the global economy at a very conservative estimate. And all nations, it is worse than the Great Depression. But yet, there is hope lives eternal in the human breast. And one is really pained as to this vile virus. We can't greet one another. We can't hug our children. We can't hug our parents. That is the worst part of this pandemic. But I'm sure we shall triumph. We shall overcome.
Very right, sir. And I totally agree with you. You made a very valid point. Now we all know that our body needs oxygen more than ever before, and our human spirit needs more hope than ever. So, sir, let us really recharge our batteries and spark a sense of fulfillment, purpose, and happiness and get lost in our history. So, as you said, where we are going depends a lot on where we are coming from. So, we need to really strongly look again back to our history. So could you tell us a little more about this in context of your book, Saraswati Civilization, which has been published by Garuda Prakashan?
Thank you. I am indeed grateful that you have given me a platform to reach out to our friends all over the country, because the topic that I am going to speak on, the book that I have written, concerns us all.
Yes.
This book deals with our identity. You know, Saraswati Civilization. It deals with who exactly we are. Are we the Aryans? Did the Aryans come from Central Asia? Did they come as invaders? Did they destroy the Dravidian civilization? of the Indus Valley and drive them south of the Vindhyas in a genocidal war in which Indra is supposed to have destroyed hundreds cities? Or are the Aryans indigenous? Right? Was there a river called the Saraswati? If so, what happened to that river? Which is the cradle river of the Indian civilization?
So right.
These are seminal questions of Indian history. Is, the Harappan civilization occupied an area of 2 million square kilometers. Was this, the same coterminous with the sacred geography of the Rig Vedic civilization? Were the two one and the same, or were they separated, as Max Muller tells us, by almost 1,500 years in time? My simple point is that when Max Muller and Sir Mortimer Wheeler, the colonial historians, enunciated the Aryan invasion theory, we did not have access then to satellite imagery, to radioisotope carbon dating. A whole lot of excavation that have been done post-independence had not been done then, right? We had no access to DNA population mapping, genetics, right? We did not have any access to sonoluminescence dating, fluoride dating, etc. Empirical scientific techniques which are now available were not available to Max Muller, right? So how can Max Muller's pronunciations be deemed oracular? Oracular, he's the last word. How dare you, Indians, you brown people, black people, this people, that people, how dare you contravene what the European erstwhile master said? Give us a break. That's not how you do science. That's not how you do social sciences either. You go by the evidence. And my simple point is that a whole great deal of empirical evidence has been added, has been made available in multiple disciplines, since the time of Max Muller. So in the year, when in 1930s, there was a great amount of churn in physics. The old Newtonian, Cartesian, mechanistic model of physics, hard, solid objects and, billiard ball-like atoms, etc., etc. All that took a big knock when quantum mechanics started. And a whole lot of data piled up. So in 1930s, they held a convention at Copenhagen to make sense of all the new data that had come in, from electricity, magnetism, electromagnetism, so many light, studies of light, etc., etc. Is light a wave? Is light a particle? All these studies were done. So they said we have to make sense of the new data. So they held the Copenhagen Convention. My simple point is, so much of new evidence has come from multiple fields, regarding ancient Indian history. And therefore, it is time now for a paradigm shift. Time to take a new look at all the empirical data and evidence that has piled up over the last 75 years. It's not that time has stood still. Nothing has been done after the British went. I mean, so much work has been done. So in the year of the Lord 2019, we held a seminar at the University of Delhi.
Yes.
It was a multidisciplinary seminar. We called the satellite imagery experts from ISRO. We called the geological experts. We called the paleo channel, the hydrodynamics experts who deal with the shifting channels of the rivers in North India. We called the archaeologists, Dr. B.B. Lal, Dr. Fisht, top doyens of archaeology, and all the recent work that they had done, including Dr. Manjul, who had found the chariot in Bagpat.
Yes.
We are told there were no chariots in ancient India. They came with the Aryans from outside over the Himalayas. So the fact of the matter is, then we call the DNA mapping experts, the microbiologists, the geneticists. And then we called the language experts and the scriptural experts, those who had studied the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Brahmans, Brahmans, all this. We called them under one roof and held a 2-day seminar. So this book is a result of a lot of the inputs that we had, discussions that we had in that seminar. And it's about time that we had a new look, because there's so much evidence has come up. Now, the Americans say, don't tell us, show us. Bataiye mat sahab, humko dikhaiye. So therefore, I have a very structured presentation. So, as I was saying, this book seeks to answer certain seminal questions. Which is the cradle river of the Indian civilization? Indus, Saraswati. By the time the Greeks came in 325 BC with Alexander, the Saraswati had dried out. And that we shall talk of a little later. So they saw the Indus. They said, this is the cradle river of Indian civilization in Indus, Indica, India. Then the Arabs came 7th century, 10th century. They also did not see the Saraswati. They saw only the Indus, and they said Sindhu because they couldn't pronounce the S. They said Hindu, Hindustan, and that's how India got its name. But now the evidence says you got the river wrong. So did this Harappan civilization correspond to the Rigvedic civilization? Were they geographically coterminous? Right? Was Sanskrit, the original Proto-Indo-European language from which all European and Indian languages have come? Was it Sanskrit? Which was that Proto-European language? So was the Indus-Saraswati area the real original homeland of the Aryans? Did they go from here outwards? Or like Max Muller said, they came as invaders from Central Asia. Are the Aryans indigenous? Are they native? Or are they foreign? The colonial historians told you they are foreigners. But then they had an axe to grind. They had an axe to grind. And that was, they were foreigners. They had to justify foreign rule, British rule in India. The British had nothing whatsoever to do with India. So they said, oh, you Aryans are also invaders. Hum bhi invader, tum bhi invader. So what's your problem? What's your problem about accepting British rule? Right? So now a big battleground in ancient history is, what was the strategic direction of the Aryan migration? Because that Aryan invasion theory in Max Muller's time itself was discredited. So then they made it Indo-Aryan migration theory. Right? So which direction was this migration? Central Asia, inward to India, or from out of India theory, OOI? Did it go from India to the outside thing? Present day, the Kharagpur IIT has carbon dated the site in Bhirana, and they found it to be, 9,500 years old. Carbon dated, radio isotope carbon dating. So all these theories, oh, we are 3,000 years old, oh, we are 5,000 years old. It now turns out, by scientific empirical evidence, by an IIT, published research findings published in Nature magazine, that you happen to be 9,500 years old, if not older. And when you study this civilization, as I will show to you, the amazing degree of continuity between them and the current Hindu civilization in India. Right? Now, today we need to reclaim our history. Can you imagine Russian history being written in Harvard or Oxford? French history, Chinese history, they write their own history. How can we outsource the writing of our history first to England and then to the United States? And then we have a whole lot of leftist liberal historians who say not a word you can change from colonial historiography. एक अल्फाज नहीं बदली कर सकते. So we need to reclaim our history, because one of the major battlegrounds of the history is the Indo-Aryan invasion. And one of the easiest ways the colonial historians and the leftist Marxist historians had to say was कि साहब कोई सरस्वती रिवर था ही नहीं. रोमेला थापड़ से हाँ एक हेक्सारावती छोटा सा नाला गंदा नाला है अफगानिस्तान में, पॉसिबली दैट वाज सरस्वती. वो निकलता है वहीं पे लॉस्ट हो जाता है, doesn't reach the sea. But I'm afraid the Rig Veda said here was a river that ran from the Himalayas to the sea. Now the stock answer of the leftist Marxist historian is, oh, how can the Rig Veda be taken as authority? वो तो कहानियां हैं, वो तो fables हैं, etc., etc. So now, sir, we have satellite imagery evidence, which we will show you. So today we need a multidisciplinary approach to solve all these riddles of Indology. And what is the age and antiquity of the Indian civilization? Now a picture is worth 1,000 words. Please take a look at this map in front of you, satellite imagery map. It has been reconstructed. All the purple dots that you see are the population settlements in ancient India. They have been mapped onto this satellite map, and you see two rivers here. There is a river in sky blue, which is the Indus, and then there is a river in a darker blue, which is the Saraswati, Ghangar, Hakra, Saraswati alignment. Now, if you see the cluster of dots, settlements, they are thickest in the area of Delhi, Hastinapur, Kurukshetra, around this Punjab, lower Punjab, upper Haryana area, right? The next cluster is in Pakistan, in Fort Abbas, Hakra area, Hakra. And what you see along the Indus are very sparse. Look at the density. Indus was an outlier. The main civilization was along the course of the Saraswati, because out of 2,300 total settlements, about 70 to 80% have been found on the banks, not of the Indus River, but the Saraswati River. Dried out course of the Saraswati. So quite obviously, the Cradle River, what the Greeks said, what the Arabs said, is wrong. The Cradle River, I'm giving you evidence in front of you. See with your own eyes. If the bulk of the settlements, 80% almost, are along the Saraswati, how can Indus be the Cradle River of India? That is, I will revert to this kind of a thing. So that is why, like I said, we held a multidisciplinary seminar in the Delhi University 2019, and we called, firstly, we had a look at Aryan invasion theory and the Indo-Aryan migration theory. Then we called the satellite imagery experts, Landsat, ISRO, geological experts, hydrodynamic experts, paleo-channel experts. Then we got the archaeological evidence. Then we looked at gene mapping, population genetic studies, and lastly, we looked at linguistic and scriptural evidence. Now the Nadi Sukta of the Rig Veda mentions the 7 major rivers of India, which is called the Sapta Sindhava, the land of the 7 rivers, right? And then they mention 3 minor streams. One of them is the Marud Vridha, which incidentally is in Kishtwar. And when I was posted in Kishtwar for counter-terrorist operations, I saw the map. I said, what river is this? So they said, Madu hai sahab, Madu hai. Then we checked, we found this is the Marud Vrida, which is written in the Rig Veda. And the Atharva Veda was written or received on the banks of the Marud Vrida river. So this is the sacred geography of the Rig Veda. Now, very much the same area is mentioned is the Harappan civilization. 2 million square kilometers from the borders of Afghanistan, Baluchistan, to UP, to Maharashtra, to Gujarat is the Indus Valley civilization area, Harappan civilization area. This is the same area as the Rigvedic civilization. So were they the same? Now in the Rig Veda, the Saraswati is mentioned as Nadittama, Devittama, Anuttama, greatest of all rivers. Greatest of all Devis, Devittama, greatest of all mothers, Anuttama, loudly roaring, mother of floods. And one verse says, the Saraswati uproots the tops of the mountains like a elephant uproots the lotus flowers from a pond. What a graphic image. It shows you the power and greatness of that river. Such a strong river. It was not a dying stream, which it had become by 1900 BC. But this was the state of the river 5,000-6,000 years ago. And that is how the Rig Veda records it. It does not record it as the dying stream. Now this is where the dichotomy comes. As per colonial historians, Max Muller said, the Aryans came in 1500 BC. Geologists tell you by 1500 BC, Saraswati had dried out. Finish. Finito. Finito. Right? But the Vedas describe the Saraswati as mother of floods. So which river are we talking about? Both Max Muller and the geologists can't be right. One of them is right, one of them is seriously wrong. Here is a satellite image of the Saraswati. The first imagery was sent back by the Landsat American satellite, 1970s. And it clearly showed the trace of a river from the Himalayas going to the sea, right? If you see the lower portion of this map, you will see a thinnish black line. That is the dried out course of the Saraswati as caught by the satellites, right? Now, as per satellite imagery, which we have reconstructed, and we have thousands of satellite photographs now, not one, thousands. And they are saying it was a river 4,600 kilometers long, 6 to 8 kilometers wide, from the Himalayas, Lake Mansarovar to the Arabian Sea. Near Patiala, it was joined by the Jamuna and the Satluj. Yamuna, instead of joining Ganga, used to join the Saraswati. And the Satluj, instead of joining Indus, used to join the Saraswati river. Paleo channel experts also have confirmed this. Confirmed. So it was a mighty river. So what happened to this river? Major tectonic plate shift activity, in the northern Indian plains. They first caused the Yamuna to change course almost 4,700 years ago and go east and join the Ganga, which it is now joining. And the Satluj around 2000 some years ago, the Satluj changed course, joined the Indus. So all the ice melt water the Saraswati was deprived of. It became a monsoonal stream. If you read the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, it says that around the time of the Mahabharata, there was a 12-year-long drought. Incidentally, climatologists and scientists record this drought period, which was global, as the Meghalayan age, Meghalayan era. 12 saal drought padi, the Saraswati dried out, the Euphrates, Tigris dried out, the Nile dried out, and all these ancient civilizations perished. By 1900 BCE, the Saraswati had completely dried out. South of Jaisalmer, it went underground. And the army has dug tube wells and sweet water. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of liters of sweet water is coming out. Okay, which can green the desert. And north of Jaisalmer, it broke up into a series of pools and lakes and ponds and lagoons. No river, just the dried out course. So therefore, by 1500 BC, when Max Muller said the Aryans had come to India, the river had become finished. It had dried out. So Max Muller said, no, the Aryans came to India and they wrote the Rig Veda. Here in India, they wrote the Rig Veda, 1500 BC. How then does the Rig Veda describe the Saraswati as a mighty river? Because if they came in 1500 BC, that means 400 साल पहले Saraswati खत्म हो चुकी थी. Now another, don't tell us, show us. Take a look at the blue river in sky blue. That is the Saraswati. That is the course of the Saraswati as enunciated by the satellite photographs. And the deep blue, ink blue river is the Indus. You see the Saraswati flowing parallel to the Indus, 4,600 kilometers long, 6 to 8 kilometers wide. It was a stream, a river as big as the Brahmaputra. And what is the desert of Rajasthan was once a lush forest with rhinos and tigers, like you have in Brahmaputra Valley rhinos. You used to have rhinos in Rajasthan. All right. That was how green this whole area was. Desertification took place. Rajasthan is today a desert because the Saraswati dried out. Because the Saraswati dried out completely. Here is another satellite photograph which clearly shows you in the bottom, if you see, jahan Ghaggar Hakra Paleo Channel likha hai, it shows you the satellite trace of the dried out bed of the Saraswati river. It is now called the Ghaggar Hakra Paleo Channel. Right? Let me show you more evidence. So I have told you what happened to the Saraswati because of tectonic plate activity. It vanished. Now here is another satellite photograph, and it shows on the north top, the dark brown is the Shivaliks. And if you see towards the right hand corner of this picture, there is a sheer fault in the Shivaliks. When the earthquake came, the Shivaliks were torn like that, and the Yamuna, instead of going down to join the Saraswati, now came out through the Ponta Sahib gap and it joined the Ganga, taking away bulk of ice melt water of this thing. Now here is a sketch, simplified sketch, which shows you the three channels of the Yamuna: Y1, Y2, Y3. Y3 is the present channel to the extreme right. Next, you see to it in dotted line, Y2 channel, where it was running parallel to the Saraswati, and the Y3 channel was the one where the Yamuna joined the Saraswati. Who has told you this? Paleo channel hydrodynamic experts. They bloody well know a lot more about their subject than Max Muller did or could ever do. This shows you where south of Jaisalmer this river has gone underground. And there is still lakhs of liters of sweet water in the desert. We are trying to take it out, and you can make Rajasthan as green as any place in UP. So like I said, 60 to 80% of these settlements were not on the Indus, on the Saraswati. The Arabs, the Greeks, the British all got it wrong on the basic cradle river of the Indian civilization. If you see the density of dots again, it is the Saraswati, which is the cradle river, the mother river of the Indian civilization. And this is again shown to you in another satellite photograph where the settlements have been superimposed. And you see they are not on the Indus, but south of it, on the dried out course of the Saraswati, which is not shown in this map. Now let's talk of archaeology. We haven't been able to decipher the Indus Valley script as yet, right? But in the Indus Valley settlements, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, etc., we have got thousands and thousands of terracotta toys, dolls, and seals, which are, living images. They are a proto-language of sorts. Even though we don't have the language, we still know what kind of people they were through these dolls, through these toys, through these, seals, right? So I'll, once again, don't tell us, show us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the toy dolls found in Mohenjo-daro. Please carefully see the uh, lady on the right. She has sindoor in the center parting of her hair, right? And if you see the center of her forehead, the mark of a bindi is there. Please look around. This is about 9,000 years old almost. यानी कि साहब हमारी जो ladies हैं, for the last 9,000 years they have been putting bindi and sindoor. We are the oldest continuing civilization as per this evidence. Take a look at this bronze doll which was discovered in Mohenjo-daro. Bronze statue, right? You see the chudis that she has got up to her arm, and you see those gypsy girls in Gujarat which still wear those chudis up to their arms, their bangles. Continuity for thousands of years. This is the most astounding photograph of all. We found little dolls in Harappa, in Mohenjo-daro, which are in the postures of yoga. अगर दो characteristic चीजें हैं, there are two characteristic things about the Indian civilization. One is yoga, the other is dhyana. Dhi, dhiyo yo nam prachodaya dhimahi, bhargo devasya dhimahi. We meditate upon. This is the Gayatri mantra. So meditation and yoga are the two characteristic features of the Indian civilization. And here you see, this yoga is not 2,000-3,000 years old, sirs. This is almost 9,000 years old as per carbon dating. And here we've got it in sketch form. So those of you who couldn't make out, you can see the Vajrasan at number 3, Pavan Muktasan at number 2, Siddhasan, etc. You can see all the asanas. What is this man doing? This is one of the statues from Mohenjo-daro. Right? This man, somebody said, is sleeping. He's not sleeping. He's doing meditation with half closed eyes. Bole, sir, how do we know? We know because of this seal. What is this? This is the proto-Shiva, Pashupati Nath, the lord of the animals, Shiva, surrounded by animals, sitting in the Siddhasan and doing meditation or dhyana. Any doubts? Okay, we still have doubts. Take a look at this. This is one of the graves dug out in the Birhana area of the Saraswati in Haryana, where you see a skeleton frozen in the mudra of Siddhasan. You know, when our yogis die, they like to die in the Siddhasan doing meditation. And they are frozen. Their dead bodies are frozen in the posture of yoga. Please see this skeleton from the Indus Valley civilization, frozen in the postures of dhyana. What doubts have you got now? You still have doubts? Okay, this is the Shiva Linga found in the Indus Valley civilization. And if you go to the National Museum, to the Indus Harappan civilization section, you will see a number of Shiva Lingas from the Mohenjo-daro Harappa area. Take a look at the seal on your right. What are the leaves on this? You know what leaves are these? People leaves. Isn't the people still worshipped in India? So look at the level of continuity. Take a look at, this is the toy bullock cart. Haven't you seen bullock carts like this in your villages? Today, the proportions are the same. This is, on the left is a boat like the one that you see in Gujarat today. Take a look at these seals on the right. The same curved boat is shown with a house kind of a structure in between. Same curved boat. 9,500 साल पुराने, continuing. What is this? Can anybody tell me what this is? Anybody who has studied in a village school will know this phatti. इस पे बच्चे लिखते थे स्लेटी से. ये है पुरानी मोहनजोदाड़ो हड़प्पा की और हमारी जो सरस्वती के साथ जो साइट्स है, which have not been fully dug up. God alone knows how much more you will see. Look at the red slipware pottery. How beautiful. That was made in the Indus Harappan civilization. Even today, I would be proud to have them in my kitchen and on my dining table. This is one of the most critical pieces of evidence which links the Harappan civilization with the Rig Vedic civilization, right? Take a look at this, the mushroom, red mushroom. Gordon Wasson said, what was the Vedic Soma? If you read the Rig Veda, the 9th mandala is all about Soma. Soma was supposed to be a psychotropic plant which gave you ecstasy, which made you creative, which made you fearless, which increased your lifespan. So, the German botanist Gordon Wasson said this was the red mushroom called fly agaric. Right? It had polka dotted mushroom. Now, in the Indus Valley civilization, we have dolls with polka dotted mushrooms around their head. Please see top left, bottom right, polka dotted mushrooms, and compare them with the mushroom there. And if you haven't gotten a good picture of the mushroom, take a look at this. Aaya samajh? Soma is there available in the Indus Valley civilization. It is not Dravidian, it is not this thing, it is Aryan. It is Rig Vedic, because the Rig Veda speaks of Soma. Here is an aerial photograph of Mohenjo-daro, and it looks like a chessboard. Here is the drainage system, which is better than what you have in Gurgaon, Delhi, Mumbai today. Every time there are rain, we have floods on our roads. Look at the drainage system of that time. Look at the toy chariot of that time. तो बोले साहब इसमें तो bulls हैं. They had no horse in the civilization. Okay, this is what has been found now in Bagpat. 4,000 years old. There is a chariot, horse-drawn chariot, like the ones you find in Mesopotamia and Rome and the other places. The type that the Mahabharata talked of. It has been found in India. It's not come from Central Asia. No wooden chariot could have crossed the Himalayas or the Hindu Kush. Radiocarbon dating of the sites in Haryana along the Saraswati. Like I said, the upper levels are 8,000 years old. The lower levels are 9,500 years old. ये कोई शाखा में नहीं कहा जा रहा. This is radioisotope carbon dating, scientific method done by the IIT Kharagpur. Accepted by all. This is Birana, some of the sites in Birana. So the antiquity of the Aryan, Indo-Aryan, Rig Vedic, Harappan, Indus Saraswati civilization is not 1500 BC as mentioned by Max Muller. It goes back to 9,500 years. Now the question is that migration. They said कि देखो साहब जो भी invasions हुई India की, they came from Central Asia. Turco-Mongols, Mongols, Mughals, ये सारे के सारे, they all came from Central Asia. So, why should it have been different in the Rig Vedic time? The difference would be if there is an ecological catastrophe, if a major river dries out, what will the people do then? Will they continue then? हम तो यही मरेंगे साहब. Those on the east bank will move east to the Ganga Yamuna. Those on the west will go to Indus. They will cross the Indus because there are already people staying there. Afghanistan, Iran, Central Asia, Europe, Middle East. So the strategic direction of the Aryan migration is not from Central Asia to India, but because of the ecological catastrophe. मेरे को ये logic समझा दीजिए. Tomorrow, if the Ganga dries out, will people come from Tibet and Central Asia to die there? When the people on the banks of the Ganga themselves are migrating. Explain to me this. If the Saraswati major river dries out, the people will migrate outwards. They will not come in to die. I hope you understand my logic. And now we have found out that in the Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, we have tablets with the names of Vedic gods, which were signed in a treaty between Hittites and Mitanni. Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Na, Satya. They are mentioned. So Max Muller said, oh, because they have come from there. Sorry, sir, you got the direction wrong. It is from here that they have gone out with their gods, Rigvedic gods. And as they went out, they carried their gods with them. The strategic direction of Indo-Aryan migration is from India outwards and not the reverse. You know, the Rig Veda says that the various Aryan tribes, Devas, Asuras, Danavas, they fought amongst themselves. The Danavas were defeated and driven out. The mother of the Danavas was Danu. And all the rivers that in Iran, they are called Danu. You know, the rivers in Europe are called what? Don, Dnieper, Dniester, Danube. You got any doubts as to where it originated? Danu, Danube. Danu, Dniester. So there are so many pieces of evidence which tell us it is time to take a new look at our history. It is time that we take stock of the empirical facts, the evidence that has built up in multiple fields, and realize that we need to change our history in consonance with the facts. I will end with this slide. Here on the left is a doll from the Harappan civilization in the Anjali Mudra, Namaskar Mudra. Most characteristic thing about the Indian civilization is this Namaskar. When we greet each other, we say Namaste. From India, it went to, Burma, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, etc. All these countries, Bali, Sumatra, Java, Japan, China, Tibet, Mongolia. This Namaste has gone from India. And this Namaste is 9,500 years old as per carbon dating. अभी भी चला आ रहा है. Continuing cultural continuity, amazing amount of cultural continuity. And I would like to end with, Iqbal. कुछ है हम में कुछ है हम में कि मिट सकती नहीं कभी हस्ती हमारी सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जमा हमारा सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for a very patient hearing. If there are any questions, I'd like to take them on.
Now, sir, amazing research work, sir. You've connected our history from beginning, the name of Hindustan, yoga, Mohenjo-daro, and you've all, you've brought it in all the context. In fact, sir, we've got so many questions, but still we like to take some questions. One common question, which I'll ask on behalf of a lot of people who've been asking, that sir, past is something to be preserved, delved into, and cherished rather than ignoring it. Our history books do not tell about all of this. Then how do we instill this feeling? I'm sure your book will help us not to forget our identity and belongingness. So what else can be done, sir?
You see, we have been going to the government of India again and again and saying that it is now time to have a major conclave of scholars under the tutelage of the government, get the scholars together under one roof, establish a Saraswati Institute, and decide once and for all what to do with all this evidence. I went and met Samriti Irani, who was the then HR minister, and she was very keen to help, but then ministry changed. Then I met Javadekar Saab, he was very keen to help, and I still find nothing much has moved. I am going to go and meet Nishank Pokhriyal Saab. I've already spoken to him. But so far, I find there is a strong resistance from the bureaucrats. To an extent, I don't blame them. You know, the bureaucrats feel that, I passed my IAS examination studying the history of Romilla Thapad, Irfan Habib, R.S. Sharma. I passed my exam. So with every change of government, we can't have a change of history. That is their point. So I am not saying you do it for ideological reasons, for doing Bhagwakaran, etc. I am saying please go academically, please go scientifically. So much evidence has piled up in so many multiple disciplines. Please have a multidisciplinary body of experts sit down and take a fresh look at your history. And if it needs change, change it. Why are you stuck? I mean, will the Chinese change it for you? You are waiting for the Africans to come and change, write your history. You can't do it yourself. You know, the Indian mind is not something to be derided. We have the top brains in the world. 30% of NASA is Indian. 30% of Silicon Valley is Indians. All the top doctors, etc., in the hard sciences, medical sciences in America are Indians. But it is in the field of history, social sciences, that we have outsourced our history to leftist Marxist historians who have got a bloody agenda. They will ignore the evidence. They will not discuss. तुम तो चड्डी वाले हो, तुम तो right wing हो, तुम तो अरे साहब, I have got a PhD, all right, and I earned it from the University of Madras. Come and discuss based on hard facts, academic evidence, empirical evidence, and you will find you have to change. Max Muller कह गए. What is Max Muller? God. Max Muller had no access to satellite imagery, to radiocarbon dating, etc., etc. How can he be the last word? 200 years after almost he is gone, dead and gone. Max Muller ने बोला, अरे, to hell with Max Muller. We go by the facts. Thank you.
Very right, sir. In fact, your research work proves it very well. Sir, I'd like to unmute Sayatan Chatterjee. In fact, he's raised a very valid point.
Hello.
Hi, yes.
Sayatan.
Hi, sir. Nice to meet you. You have presented such an enlightening discussion on that. I would, of course, I would have liked you to continue the discussion, but since time is not permitting, sir, I had a question that our governments, let it be any of any hue, but my concern is that can't there be enough fundings on the research subjects concerning genetics, biotechnology, archaeology, and likewise, like they are the principal subjects on which a civilization stands, right? If the archaeological evidences are thoroughly searched upon, thoroughly researched on, that would bring forth a huge arsenal of things which would be thought upon by academicians and experts. Like that would change the entire course of history we make our youth learn today, right?
Absolutely.
So, yes, sir. So what do you recommend on putting forth demands to the governments to increase fundings on these subjects? What do you recommend on this?
Thank you. The fact of the matter, as I told you, is that we had started this work. Like I said, I had met all the HR ministers one after another, and gone to the culture minister also.
and all of them were very supportive. But I'm very sorry to state that 7 years have passed of this government, and so far not one line of history has been changed. Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad are still called terrorists. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose has vanished from our history. Azad Hind Fauj vanished from our history. Ancient history, our history, as per the leftist historian, starts with the Mughal Empire. Uske pehle we were Dangar, Dhong from the caveman period. History starts with the Mughal period because it has to be secular history. If you talk of the more ancient periods of history, that will be Hindu history, and we are secular. Therefore, we will not talk of Hindu history. Kamal hai, sir. But I haven't understood this logic. So we had started in a very major way going to the government and trying to. Some very top people have made presentations. Dr. B.B. Lal and Dr. K.D. Rajput.
Yes, sir.
You know, he was the NCERT gentleman. And then, of course, Dr. Bhest and the other people, we've all gone to the government. Now, please take a second look. Please take a second look. We asked the Romilla Thappars of the world to please join us in seminar. We will not come because you are right wing. ये क्या है मतलब साहब आप डिस्कस नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि वो दूसरा राइट विंग है. Is this academic rigor?
Yes.
If you have the dum, come and discuss. Put the evidence forth. Let the people decide. Let the scholars decide. But, you know, 7 years after this government, nothing has been changed. Bhagat Singh is still a terrorist. Can you have a greater insult? And what has been said about the Sikh Guru is even more disconcerting. But we have not been able to change because the bureaucracy has stuck its feet down and said, sir, we can't have a change. हमने तो ये वाला exam में पढ़ा था. I am an IAS Babu today because I passed the exam based upon history is taught by Romilla Thappar, history is taught by Irfan Habib and R.S. Sharma, and I don't know anything else. I will not let them change. So they have stuck to their ground and nothing has changed. But I think it will. Unfortunately, COVID came in between, and a major disruptor it has been of this process. We will restart this. We will not give up, and that is why I am very grateful to Aneda ji that she held this discussion, so that there is a groundswell from the grassroots. The Indian people demand a change. Indian people demand that our history be updated in the light of new facts.
Yes, sir. Sir, very much thanks. I hope that it someday succeeds. The approach of us fellow Indians who want the history to be rechecked, relooked, succeeds. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to unmute Mr. Atul Kulkarni. He wants to ask you a question. He sent a very valid question to me personally. Atul ji.
Yes. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And there is always, this kind of dilemma when you have somebody like General Saab on the panel to ask him questions which are more about the present day geopolitics, with a lot of things happening in West Asia and along the Indian borders and also across our nation in Nepal. But I'll stick to today's topic. Sir, you've talked about the Saraswati civilization. And my question is, how do we counter the European historians who seem to be at times making a claim that this did not exist because none of the documents show that the Harappan civilization or thereafter there was any military might. We don't seem to be getting the evidence that there were internal fights, and because of that, what they're used to. I mean, they are used to the history of fights amongst themselves, and always at wars with each other. And sometimes they claim that since there is no evidence of that nature, it seems that what you are talking is fiction and did not really happen. So that is one question that I have. Number two, there are enough evidences. I would like to add to what you have already said, that some people who were on the western banks of River Saraswati actually migrated outwards, as you rightly said. And I have met some of these indigenous people as far as a state, Baltic state called Latvia.
That
They kind of moved, they migrated, they kept on walking, and finally reached the shores of Baltic Sea. And possibly at that time, they did not have the technology to cross the Baltic Sea and therefore settled there. Interesting fact is that there is a dictionary which talks about Sanskrit
10,000
and
words.
Latvian language. 8,000 words. 8,000 words. I have met these indigenous people in Latvia, coming from the interior parts of Latvia, and then they gave me enough evidences that they said we belong to Kshatriyas race, we belong to so and so race, which is the western bank of Saraswati. So there are two things that I put across to you. One is we need to counter this narrative by the Western historians saying that since there was no military might, because there is no evidence, and because they are used to history, which is war history, more of, unfortunately, there is no other history that they believe, or they rather, uh, you know, uh, kind of believe. So we need to, I think, counter this more aggressively. Your uh, expert input on this, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You see, the simple fact is that Mortimer Wheeler initially said that the Aryans came from the north. They had the war horses. They had the war chariots. The poor Dravidians, who were the people of the Indus Valley, they were very peaceful. They were just trading. They were, just doing their religious things and all that. And they were slaughtered. They were murdered. They were genocide. So they said, the historians asked, okay, if there was such large scale genocide, show us the evidence. Where are the corpses? Where are the dead bodies? So at once they started looking for dead bodies. They started looking for skeletons. At one
In fact,
case, they found 47 skeletons. But they were not at the same level.
There is one specific.
If this level means there may be a difference of 300-400 years between two levels as you dig down. Right? They were not at the same level, number one. Number two, when they examined these skeletons, there were no marks of sword cut. There were no marks of spear, arrows, nothing. Then it turned out that these people had died by drowning. So the famous Aryan invasion theory, that the Aryans with their superior war horses and chariots, they came from Central Asia. They crossed the Hindu Kush, the Khyber and Bolan Pass. They crossed the Himalaya. Sir, I have served in the Himalayas. हमारे टैंक नहीं चढ़ सकते वहां unless आप रोड बनाए, tunnels बनाए. Tank, with a 1,000 horsepower engine. How could those rickety wooden chariots cross that? Anyway, as per Max Muller, they crossed, or what Max Muller says is right because he's European. और आप और मैं तो हिंदुस्तानी है, brown है, काले हैं, etc., etc. This is what your historians say. Now, this theory that India did not have horses. This is not the Aryan civilization, the Harappan civilization, because there were no horses, there were no chariots. Wrong. I have shown you the photograph of the chariot found recently at Bagpat. There is enough evidence for horses. If you go to the, the caves at near Bhopal, they are called maybe just slipping. There are these cave complexes near Bhopal, Bhimbedka caves, right? And there you have
yes.
paintings on the cave, painting on the cave walls, painting on the rock painting. There are horses and horses and horses painted there. भरा हुआ, and some of them are 10,000 years old. So ये historian ने बोला नहीं साहब ये जो horses वाली है वो नहीं है, वो वाली पुरानी. कार्बन डेट कर लो ना साहब, कार्बन डेट कर लीजिए. बिराना में जो horses की paintings हैं on the rock, उनकी एज क्या है आपको पता? Because Birhana is in MP. It is not on the borderlands, Punjab, Haryana, etc. It is in Madhya Pradesh. This Bhimbetka, right?
Yes.
So if Bhimbetka में horse की paintings हैं, we would like to check their age. We would like to carbon date those samples. That is the scientific way to go about it. And horse bones have been found in Gujarat. Yes, India did not have a good gene pool of horses. We also did not have some metals and lapis lazuli, but we got it from Afghanistan. We got it from Central Asia. We were trading with all these places. We got it from the Middle East. So horses have been purchased in India by the Vijayanagar Empire. That purchased horses from Arabia. The Mughal Empire, every year it used to purchase thousands of horses from Arabia because India does not have a good gene pool of horses. So if you don't have, doesn't mean that they were never there. This civilization ही अलग है साहब. So we have found the evidence of chariots at Bhagpat, 4,400 years old. Full war chariot, horse-drawn chariot. We've got the evidence of, what is called horse skeletons in Gujarat and other places. Problem with India is it's a tropical climate and skeletons don't last very long. So like in Middle East, Central Asia, और यहाँ horse थे. हाँ साहब, वो dry climate है, वहाँ बारिश नहीं होती monsoon 4 महीने की, जो कि सब सड़ा देती है, खत्म कर देती है. So that is the point. There is adequate evidence. Adequate evidence is coming up. More will come, providing we look for it. And providing we take stock of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anshul. Yes.
हेलो, नमस्कार गुरु जी. एक्चुअली मेरा सवाल ये है कि आज भी जो यूक्रेन है उसके अंदर जिप्सी करके कुछ कम्युनिटी रहती है. वो लोग ये क्लेम करते हैं कि वो राजस्थान. हेलो,
हाँ जी सुन रहा.
हेलो,
सुन रहा हूँ मैं.
राजस्थान से. यस सर. राजस्थान, वो जिप्सी लोग वो बोलते हैं कि वो राजस्थान से माइग्रेट किए हैं लगभग 1000 साल पहले. तो क्या ये उसी से इसको कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं कि जो हमारी नदी सूख रही थी तो फिर जो मतलब जब नदियां सूखती है तो फिर माइग्रेट करते हैं लोग, तो वो धीरे धीरे माइग्रेट करते हुए राजस्थान से होते हुए यूक्रेन पहुंच गए. इवन यूरोप के बहुत से कंट्रीज के अंदर आज भी इंडियंस हैं, वो जिप्सीज या कुछ अलग अलग उनको नाम से वो अपने आप को रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं. इवन उनके नेम तक भी इंडियंस है आज भी, मतलब लगभग 1000 साल से. तो क्या इसको हम इस सरस्वती जो हमारी सिविलाइजेशन है इससे जोड़ सकते हैं? और एक आपको धन्यवाद देना था सर. एक्चुअली मेरी माँ, मेरा जो, मैं अजमेर से रहने वाला हूँ और मेरी मम्मी बचपन से मेरे को सरस्वती नदी के बारे में बोलती रहती है, बट मेरे पास रियल में कोई सबूत नहीं था. मेरी माँ मतलब बोलते बोलते मतलब थक गई है, बट वो आजकल इतना नहीं बोलती उस बार. बट मेरे पास अभी मैंने आपकी बुक मंगाई है, उसको मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ. मेरे को मतलब रियल में बहुत ज्यादा खुशी है कि मेरी मम्मी जो बोलती थी वो आज सच है. वो मतलब कोई मिथ नहीं है जैसा हमको पढ़ाया गया उपनिवेशिक गुलामी की, जो मानसिक गुलामी के अंदर हमने पढ़ा है. तो आपका मतलब अंदर से एक आपको ये धन्यवाद देता हूँ सर. मेरा यही सवाल.
थैंक यू.
यस सर.
मैं आपका दूसरा सवाल पहले लूंगा. देखिए, भारतवर्ष में एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग ओरल ट्रेडिशन, हजारों साल तक वेदों को कंठस्थ करके याद रखा गया. कहीं लिखा नहीं गया, तब तक राइटिंग इन्वेंट नहीं हुई थी. वेद व्यास के समय जाके वो जो मास ऑफ वेदस थे, 1 के 4 वेद किए गए और उनको लिखा दिया. तब तक हजारों साल तक कंठस्थ करके याद. इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन में जैसे आपने माता जी का बताया, एक ओरल ट्रेडिशन है जो चली आ रही है. जब एक हिंदू की डेथ होती है, अस्थियां का विसर्जन होता है गंगा जी में, लेकिन पिंडदान कहाँ होता है? कुरुक्षेत्र. कुरुक्षेत्र में क्यों? जब मेरे पिताश्री का उनका देहांत हुआ, उन्होंने देह त्यागी, तो मैं गंगा में गया अस्थि विसर्जन के लिए, और फिर मैं और मेरा छोटा भाई हम लोग गए कुरुक्षेत्र पिंडदान के लिए। तो मेरे मन में ख्याल आया कि यार यहाँ कौन सी नदी है, कुरुक्षेत्र में तो कोई नदी नहीं, ये सब चीजें तो नदियों में की जाती है ना। तो फिर साहब जब मैंने पढ़ना शुरू किया तो पता चला कि सरस्वती कुरुक्षेत्र से होके गुजरती थी। लुक एट द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द इंडियन ट्रेडिशन। सरस्वती के जाने के 4000 साल बाद भी उसकी मेमोरी ओरल ट्रेडिशन में जिंदा रखी गई। जब आप जो है प्रयागराज जाते हैं और आप संगम जाते हैं किश्ती में बैठ के, तो मल्लाह आपको बोलता है कि साहब ये है गंगा जी, ये है जमुना जी, और सरस्वती अदृश्य हो गई। फैक्ट ये है, जैसे मैंने बताया, जयपुर से आगे सरस्वती अंडरग्राउंड एक्चुअली हो गई है एट अ प्लेस कॉल्ड विनाशना। विनाशना मतलब डिस्ट्रक्शन। ये इज द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द ओरल ट्रेडिशन, ठीक है। और यही मैं कहना चाहूंगा। जहां तक रोमोना लोगों का सवाल है, ये जिप्सी राजस्थान के हैं, लेकिन ये सरस्वती की ईरा के नहीं है, ये उसके बाद के, बहुत बाद, काफी रीसेंट है, कोई about 1000 years plus. But what it shows is that the people of India can migrate and go upland up to Europe and beyond. तो ये कहना कि सब कैसे हो सकता है, कैसे हो सकता है, जरा देख लीजिए ना अपने आसपास। मैं फ्रांस गया हूँ, मैं यूरोप गया हूँ, रूस गया हूँ, और फ्रांस में, पेरिस में अभी भी आपको मिलेंगे ये रोमोना आवारा हूँ गाते हुए, और ए शाहरुख खान करके बोलेंगे आपको। वो हिंदुस्तानी है, क्लियर एज एविडेंट, शक्ल रूप देखा सब उनकी वही। सो दैट इज एविडेंस दैट आउट ऑफ इंडिया माइग्रेशन can take place and has taken place quite often. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ansh. So we have one last question. Yuvraj has joined back. And Yuvraj, please.
Right. So, ma'am, I'm audible right now.
Yes.
Right. Pleasant greetings of the day, sir. I must say that I have been a huge fan of yours. And, since I'm representing the youth and, the people of my generation, there's often a statement which is, often marked by us or people like us. So they say that, let's leave and bury the old things and instances that happened. Just like that cliche statement, Purani Baatu par mitti feko. And on the same hand, we are aware of the, immense research work done by you in delving into the ancient Indian past. So how do we communicate or, at least convey the generation that past is something, to be preserved, cherished into and delved into rather than completely ignoring it?
Thank you for that very pertinent and very valid question. My simple answer is, those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it. George Santania. You don't learn from history, I don't have time for the past, well then you will bloody well make all those same mistakes again. 8 centuries this country has been enslaved, raped, temples burned, destroyed, Nalanda burned for 6 months. So many were the books there. सोने की चिड़िया, कहाँ गया आपका सोना? ऊँटों पे लाद के ले गए सेंट्रल एशिया, सामरकंद, बुखारा, ताशकंद, wherever. If you don't learn from history, sir, you will cut a sorry figure. You will repeat your history of invasion, defeat, destruction. हम कौन है, हमारा वजूद क्या है, ये तो जानना है. Who the bloody hell are we as Indians? What is our point of origin? Are we Aryans? If we are Aryan, where did we come from? And all this joke about Aryan-Dravidian divide was done by a British bishop. Who the hell is a bishop to write your history? What does he know? How is he become a historian? And we have now checked and found that genetically there is no difference in the genes, north and south of the Vindhya. If you go tomorrow to deep south with Madras, the sun is strong and your color will change. So what? So bloody what? It is the same people, north and south of the Vindhya. And all this, Mortimer, Wheeler and Max Muller, वो दासास लिखा है वेदास में. Who were the दासास? They were the Dasi. Oh, they were the Dravidians. अरे D से दास, D से दसी, ऐसे थोड़ी ना होता है. It's not so simple as that. It now turns out that the dasas in Iran, the common peasant is called Daha. The Iranians don't pronounce S. दासास का दाहाज, असुराज, असुर और देवों के बीच में लड़ाई, असुर हार गए, they were driven out to Iran, वहां जाके जोरास्ट्रियंस बने, ठीक है, and the Zoroastrians, उनका गॉड, उनका प्रॉफिट कौन है? अहुरा माजदा, अहुरा असुरा, आप समझे? And the major fight in North India was not between Aryans and Dravidians. It was between Indo-Aryans and Indo-Iranians. थोड़ा ना इतिहास को पढ़ लीजिए, समझ लीजिए, then you will know what crap we are talking. ये अंग्रेजों ने बोला तो क्या हुआ? Where is the proof? Where is the evidence? Study किया है, you see, and then you are twisting history. Had the Dravidians migrated from the Indus, Saraswati down across the Vindhyas to Tamil Nadu, then they would have carried the names of the river. You see, when the Americans go from Europe to America, they carry the names of their towns, their rivers, etc. with them. आपने साउथ में पढ़ा है कहीं सरस्वती, कहीं इंदस, कहीं बिरहाना, मोहिंजोदाड़ो, हड़प्पा, कोई कहीं नाम सुना है? They have been there all along, where they are now. And Dravida means the land of the three seas. You know, Sanskrit came earlier, the Tamil Sangam literature came later. And there is no this mythical divide, Aryan, Dravidian, a total creation of the British to divide and rule. So please learn your history to understand how you have been made a jackass. आपका बेवकूफ कैसे बनाया गया, आपको आपस में कैसे लड़ाया. Unless you don't learn that, हमारी सारी politics आजकल, you know, the British reinvented caste. 1857 की गदर के बाद they said we will never let India unite. So how to divide India? Which is the best fault line? Caste. Do you know 1872 the British held the first caste-based census, and it was held by Sir John Risley. And you know what John Risley said? As long as there is caste, there will be no India. लड़ते मरते रहेंगे कुत्तों की तरह, ठीक है? And the beauty, sir, is कि हमारे 75 years after independence, all our politics is still based on caste. We have made the divides worse than they were earlier, because we have added economic reservation and job reservation, and you may get 98% marks, but you can't get into a college. Somebody else can get there with 30% marks. And it will go on for the next 10,000 years कि हमारा शोषण हुआ था. अबे किसने शोषण किया तुम्हारा बाप? Brahmin, Kshatriyas, this, that, and the rest. 800 years from now, you have been ruled by foreigners. They were brutal against the Brahmins, Kshatriyas. Those are the people who have been at the receiving end. उन्होंने किसका कहाँ शोषण किया था? You know, but आपस में अंग्रेज बोल गए, लड़ा गए, मरा गए. We will not change. हम नहीं आते. Why go over the past? Because if you don't go over the past, you will remain deluded. You will make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Well, anybody who does not have his own narrative will soon become a part of the narrative of somebody else. You are a part of the colonial narrative of the British Empire. You do not have the thumb to change. But we will see that it changes, because it needs to change. We need a country which says, Satyamev Jayate, truth alone triumphs, has to go by the truth. And not what some Gora Lard Saab said 200 years ago. That's not the way it works. Thank you.
Definitely, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. You've indeed made an important and much needed contribution to our understanding of Saraswati, the Devi, and manifestation of it as a mighty river and the amazing civilization around it. Definitely this narrative had to be told. So, sir, thank you so much for gracing our platform and sharing so many anecdotes, so many stories, and so much of factual information with us. I'm sure everyone today present has different perspective to the Almighty Saraswati now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Bharat. Jai
Jai
Hind.
Bharat. Jai Hind, sir. Big thanks to the audience for joining in. It's such a pleasure
Jai
to
Hind,
have you
sir.
again and again. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for such an enlightening presentation.
Thank
Jai
you.
Hind.
Jai Hind.